How's it going? Dedicated group of Rand Tract lovers. Um, I I've been looking over the comments from last meeting. I looked over Chad's survey and suggestions from that survey. And then I was looking over the ecotourism study, which for all its faults has a lot of things that kind of are represented, match the suggestions in there. Some of those match the suggestions that and interests that people have from this group. So it was interesting to look over all those things. I definitely felt like when I used the word development in our first meeting that people had a visceral reaction to that. I don't know if they envisioned pavement and billboards, but in fact, that's certainly not what I meant. I meant any kind of change that could happen at Rand Tract Webster Pond. And the things, when I use that word, I was thinking of pretty much the things that were mentioned in the different sources. So just as a review, I'm gonna share my screen and try and make it as big as I can. My computer, for some reason, no one's in the office, but it is working slower now than it was during the day. So hold on one second here. And so I just want to say when I started this process, my thought for why I was interested in engaging stakeholders was with the hopes of finding some simple things that we could do this fall or spring that are agreeable and achievable and that we can build on. I feel like to do bigger things, to just stay focused on those things first. And so I'm looking at these suggested improvements, and I did some of my own editing as you go further right. So first of all, do you see 3 columns and some are colored? Is that what people see?
Yes.
Okay. So from our meeting, the left column is what people said in chat or verbally. And the yellow things highlighted in yellow and suggested improvements at the meeting match the things that came about from Chad's survey, which, I mean, that was kudos to you, Chad, for cranking that out so quick. And I mean, it is a small sample size in terms of public outreach, but all of that seemed like viable. Those were good results, and they're pretty exciting results. And one of the things that so trail improvements. Rantract needs an interpretive structure and trail map. That's a suggested meaning improvement. More for trail maps. And then in Chad's, trail markers and other appropriate signage with directions, trail length, degree of difficulty. When I said development, the number one thing I was thinking of is how Chad summarizes that first one about trail markers. Stationary trail maps at entrances. All the ones in green are things related to the management of natural resources. And at the meeting, there were people that spoke, and a lot of them had a lot of comments about Rantract and Webster Pond, and more especially the group that lives around like the regular users of Rantract. That's sort of the sense I got. And then the people that talked about natural resource management related issues and plants were using the chat function to share their thoughts. And there were a lot of comments in this about how to improve Webster Pond, how to expand what was going on at Webster Pond, and support the work that Chad and Anglers Association are doing. And then on the chat side, it was a lot about the management of rare plants and adding plants to enhance the woods. Despite the fact that Chad's survey seemed to be, I couldn't tell. Chad, how many people took your survey?
There was 39 altogether, and that was only within like
2-9 or 3-9?
I think he said 3-9, Steve.
Okay. Well, that's not bad. That's I mean, everything there is definitely, visitors sign in and comment logs, trash cans at the trail entrance, dog waste stations, tree identification markers, tool lending closet, downloadable printable maps, guided hikes, benches. Actually, I did have, in reviewing your comments about the benches, I believe the thing that the commissioner, the thing that she had concerns about was installing benches and selling sponsorship. I don't think that there was an issue about having benches there. And the idea you proposed is that was proposed from your survey was about putting natural benches. That's a pretty solid one, it seems like. I shouldn't be saying like that, like I'm the judge of whether these are viable, but I thought it merited putting down here for people to see. And then I got some feed going over to the far right column in terms of other suggestions. I got feedback from a few people about the ecotourism study, mainly about the errors in the study. And those were good things to point out. And then I got some comments from George Matthews, talking about their take on the parking was, they don't have the context that we do about the area. They're students, they don't know as much, but that there's viable parking opportunities down by the church on land that the city owns. So I wanted to put that down there. I did want to highlight some of the suggestions from the ecotourism study. Forgive my memory, Anne, were we able to share the link for that?
Yes, that was in an email that went out. I don't know if everybody received the email. Bill, Kenny, did you receive that email?
Maybe,
What was it titled? I received it.
Okay, yeah, it went out in an email. So if people did not receive that email with the links, then you can just drop that in the chat and we'll get that out to you.
There were a couple of things that I just highlighted. There's a lot in that study that had some interesting ideas, I thought. And I just highlighted some of them. They talked about wheelchair accessibility at the Rantract and Webster Pond, and we can talk a bit about that more. I had a question. I feel like you've mentioned accessibility yourself, Chad, that it was accessible.
Yes, it is. I wouldn't go up by myself. just for safety purposes, but I can make it almost all the way up.
Okay, yeah, that is a different thing for sure. So that was one idea, both around the pond and they didn't suggest in the Rand Tract. Again, signage along all trails and trailheads. They suggested an idea of separating and minimizing separating bikes and minimizing intersections of bike trails and foot trails. This was an interesting one. Designate emergency access points for emergency dispatchers at Rand Tract and Webster Pond. I don't know what the status of that is. Identify rare plants with interpretive signage, identify erosion hotspots and rectify, increase community involvement and volunteer stewardship, establishing a friends group, and then addressing parking. So that's a breezy tour of suggested improvements. It's not a comprehensive one. It reflects everything that the primary things that were in the meeting. There, something I didn't include things like these were suggested improvements. They don't include part of the discussion such as don't change anything. Like here's some things that were discussed as concerns. Keep trail system unchanged. Make that a little bigger. Limit trail maintenance to the bare minimum. Retain current rules for trails. You know, a statement about allowing bikes but not motorized vehicles. Dogs should be leashed. You know, snowshoeing is fine, and you know, prevent motor vehicles, weapons, unleashed dogs, fires, camping, and obvious illegal activities. Is there anything that is an important suggested use or thing that should be allowed that people should think should be on the public record of my review? To be clear, I do want to, the next thing I was going to do is talk about some things, is ask your feedback of what we should talk about in more detail and how to go forward on them. So we're going to have more discussion, but is there anything here that people see as glaring because it's missing and should be included? Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, am I unmuted?
I can hear you.
Okay. Looking at that study, Steve, the biggest problem is there's no inventory of the site of the natural features or the topography or anything else upon which they are basing any of their suggestions. And when you do a comprehensive plan, you've got to look at the whole system together and then look at the program. You can't develop the program without knowing what the conditions in the site are. And they have just a very general overview of the plants, the topography, the access issues, all the different things that are involved there. So before anything gets done, you really have to step back and look at that, because there could be a question about whether you actually allow bicycles on that site. I worked on a natural site in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we did not allow bicycles on the site because they were causing erosion and they were prohibited. And when I looked at the study, it said that the CNY Dirt Group advertises the Rantract as a biking site. And I don't know if that's legal. If the city doesn't allow it, or, I mean, are they just, they're advertising it, and so lots of people are coming to bike there. They're creating their own program, and the city is, by not having a plan, you're allowing all that to go on without any mitigation. So I think you've got to look at the whole system. I mean, I'm not against interpretive trail signs and better access within limits and better trail accessibility. But when you go into biking and all this crisscrossing trails and all that, I really think you need to look at the site and see whether that is a good site for this at all. It's a very small site. You can get through it very quickly. There's a lot of other places to go mountain biking in the county that are a lot better than the Rand Tract. The city has one or two natural sites. Actually, there's a couple, but they're not necessarily public. But, you know, is that the best use to have all this biking trails going on like they have in that plan? So I'm just saying, before you go that far, you need to have a comprehensive inventory and analysis, and then you need to look at what the program should be based on that situation. And in order to do that, I don't see how you can get away without doing some kind of RFP to somebody to take all the studies that have been done on the Rantract, go out there, do topography, do inventories of plants, do all the kind of things that you normally do. And I mean, you can do a little thing here and a little thing there, but that's not going to solve the overall big programmatic issue that we have an undesignated program for the site, and that people think they can do four-wheel drive vehicles and that, and there's no way to police it if nobody set any rules. So I'm just curious.
Anyone have anything else related to that?
Mr. Harris,
Go right ahead.
Yeah,
my take on the whole thing is that it's been that way for how many years. Why not leave well enough alone?
I think you got me.
There's been no incidents to report. There's been no reports of any kind. I don't worry about the minimal bike use that the Rantract receives.
Right now, has anyone observed a change in bike use over the years?
Oh,
Yeah, sure we have.
Absolutely.
I mean, yes, but I mean, as long as it's policed, which we do, it shouldn't be an issue.
How do you police it?
We send people up there, volunteers 2 or 3 times a day to check and see what the property looks like, make sure there's no riprap of any kind.
Take care of the pond.
Right. There's not many of us, but you know, the thing that I'm seeing is that
We all live close by.
since the Rantract's been open, the congestion of cars out on Valley Drive, you know, a while ago, that are they making a sign that would say you can't go over to the church's parking lot? Because you're right, a lot of the students and everybody coming down were congested just alone with the people feeding the ducks, and we're not even talking about the Rantract. And then all of a sudden out in Valley Drive, there's cars going all the way down to the Rantract.
Yeah, they park in the cemetery, they park wherever, but
I just see an issue with the surrounding people owning houses around here. You know, that it's getting a little bit more commercialized than what it is. When it comes to bikes, listen, as far as I'm concerned, we've all been there.
hasn't been many at this point.
You know, this is the only sanctuary left in the city. Any other park, you know, there's violence, there's this, there's that. There's been no issues here at all. And it's because of Chad. We take the golf cart. Dave picks up the property here volunteer wise 7 days a week. Everything's done in conjunction, but it just seems like I'm watching four-wheelers on Saturday, dragging people with bikes out of the Rantract. Policing it. Are the Circus Police Department going to be at least driving in there or up to there? It starts to open. People are going to come, and they're going to be all sorts of people. Good people, bad people, you know. And that's like anything in life, but I just see that this is, you have eagles, ducks. You got a bike fly, and one of the ducks gets out of the pond, gets into the track, and boom, it
No,
gets
but
hit.
they're not talking about down here, Jimmy.
Okay.
They're talking about only up on top of the range.
Okay.
Don't mix the two.
Sorry. I just, you know, the biking thing, and again, with the biking thing, that I heard that there's a group that you just called that group up from the city of Syracuse, legally said, no, this isn't for bike shop, but it may be. You know,
Well, it's always meant for bikes.
has-
And I think it should remain for bikes. I mean, as long as it doesn't get out of control.
This place is not set up for a lot of people to be at. Not set up that way. Can't have too many people here.
It's always been set up for the people to come in, feed the ducks.
But
And-
we're not talking about people. That's for the range.
Parking,
Yeah.
parking's number one. Unless you gotta put a lot in somewhere.
Now, I just wanted to interject for a moment because, mainly because I heard about 40% of what you and Chad said because of the connection. So I have an incomplete understanding of what you were talking about. It sounded like it was a range of issues around biking is minimal. Biking is okay, it's always been there. Some other issues and concerns related to the amount of people in parking.
I don't think we should change anything as far as biking goes. It's very minimal right now and it's under control. And people think they can bike here, so let them. It's one of the only places in the city that they can enjoy nature and bike safely at the same time.
Steve. Could I just,
Thanks, Chad. Kathy has a question, Steve.
Yeah,
okay, let me see if I can. The point I was making is if you do an inventory and analysis and you look at the whole site, you could tell how much biking you want to do or where the trail should go. Right now, without any of that information, you can't really assess how much biking and where the biking might be better than not biking. So that's the basis upon which you make the programmatic decisions. I'm not saying take the biking out, but I'm saying if the analysis showed the biking really is disturbing the environment and really doesn't fit in, the city has the right to have a set of programs in that site that will support the site. And they could set some limits on the kinds of bikes and the types of use and all the other kinds of things. So that's the city's, it's actually the responsibility of the city to do that. So, I mean, that's my point. And because it's been done for 40 years or whatever, that's not a reason, if we're gonna do a comprehensive plan, to start and look at the whole site in a complete way.
But why do we have to do a comprehensive plan? What is wrong with it now? Why does that have to be done? Nothing wrong with it right now, the way it's operating.
Right up. I'll just say, because I wanted to talk about some other things, is that I think the fact that there isn't much inventory and analysis about the like the things Kathy was speaking to in terms of plants, rare plants, where they are, trails, topography. I think it speaks to a reason why right now there's no crisis, right? So it speaks to a reason why you wouldn't make those kind of changes now. We're not ready. It's not time to do that. And I think you guys are right that, I mean, I don't know if you're right. I don't observe, I see a lot of erosion and disturbing erosion, and I don't yet see bike use causing problems that have me concerned. And I do know the CNY bike people, and I would, right now, the level of bike use, yeah, we don't see much, but and you guys are great stewards, and you go there and you check on things, and the way the uses are happening now, that works. But what if the biking increased? We have no policy on biking. There's no, as far as I know, that's an unregulated spot. What are the rules? There are rules that we have, the commons, the rules of the commons. So what if all of a sudden 30 people start showing up and biking once a week and going where they want? You know, then what do we do? Then it wouldn't be as simple as, then the city would have to be involved. Since we're not there yet, I'm not, it's not like, it's something to be thinking about and be prepared for. Which brings me to the thing about trailheads and trail markers and the okay. Speaking of trailheads, and hold on, I gotta, that feedback loop caused me to lose my train of thought a little bit. I wanted to visit the things that we got the most comments, and it feels like the most agreement based on those comments. And that is developing a trail map and identifying the rare plants and taking measures to protect them. Through either signage or fencing or planting. And I wanted to ask, first of all, a trail map, which I know has been a discussion for a long time, as an improvement, what are people's ideas on how we would make that happen? That's a thing that would have no impact on the environment, but would allow you to send a friend there and know where to go.
So Catherine, go ahead.
Oh, I had my hand raised for actually an earlier prompt, but,
Yep, you can speak to that then,
yeah,
Catherine. Please
well,
go ahead.
I kind of put what I, wanted to say in the chat that, you know, the student study really, you know, did not address any environmental impacts of, you know, inviting a lot of people, you know, publicity, promoting the site. So I think I made that point in the chat. As far as a trail map goes, to me, that also underlines the point for the comprehensive study because, I mean, granted, there are trails now, but that study would also show the most appropriate places to have a, you know, formally sanctioned trail system that would have minimal erosion, minimal contact, or minimal you know, potential damage to those sensitive areas. So, you know, to me, I agree with Kathy. I think it really all comes down to having a thorough analysis before formally designating any of these sites. I mean, in the short run, you know, there are some trails that probably could be marked, but certainly in the long run, I really think we need a much more thorough study to identify, you know, the values that we talked about at the first meeting, you know, where they are and how we can best protect them. I like the idea of exclosures, maybe developing some exclosures with some interpretive signage.
Catherine, do you mean analysis, a better, the planning to be done before any potential expansion or even like the most formal loop that we do? You know, going.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to put some trail markers now, I mean, there are some established trails that have probably been there for decades, but I think in the long run, that the placement of trails, and this is something where probably Kathy knows much more than I do, but, you know, to me, that would be something that would come from, you know, some kind of formal study that would show where the best places to put those trails are, because, I mean, there are pretty established trails, but there's also some, you know, crisscrossing, and I mean, there's some, you know, sort of random trails here and there, say on steep slopes that probably shouldn't belong there, that should be closed. So in some ways, trail placement, you know, needs some thought. So I don't know if that made any sense, but.
It did. Thanks, Catherine. Steve, I just want to mention we're at 7:38.
Got it. Anyone want to weigh in on the ideas of trails and trail development?
I have my hand raised.
Go right ahead. Sorry.
That's all right, thank you. So those trails have been there since at least 1955. How do I know that? I married into a family that been living there since before that. And the older sisters walked on that land and those same trails. I only bring that up because someone mentioned that how long the trails were there. I once walked from Skyline, which is in the town of Onondaga, down to the Rantract. And the path is not very clear anymore, but I made it. I didn't know where the city line was or wasn't. And I don't know where the cemetery property starts and ends. And so I was hoping that at the minimum, we could
get the study done for the best possible ways to stop erosion, but also to mark off the property. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
By mark off property, you mean delineate the boundaries with all our neighbors, town of Onondaga and private, etc.
Yes.
Which, since I've noticed the deer exclosure up there and no trespassing signs that are clearly on our property, but seem to be meant to discourage people from going up to town of Onondaga, I think it would be good to clearly mark where our boundaries are. Yeah. Any other comments on trails?
I think we should do one big map at the beginning of the trail and then have printable maps for people to take as a handout or something. Even if we made it like out of wood, and then we encase the wood in plastic or something to protect it from the weather. We would be
You mean
willing-
stationary?
Yes. But then also have printable maps as well that people could take if they wish. And, we would be willing to help with that if you would like.
Steve,
Yeah,
I'm not terribly adept at this, so I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do to raise my hand. So
start talking.
fine. With regard to the trail markers and all the rest of it, I think the points are well taken. The current trails, although they have historic, as Bill says, they've been around for a long time. There's that aspect to it, but from the erosion and the rest of that point of view, they may not be in the right place. There's also the 2 parcels of land, one to the north and one to the south of the Rand Tract that could be incorporated. The one to the north includes gravel pits from the reconstruction of 173. I have no idea what kind of trails might be up there, but you'd have to do something to determine what kind of trails should or could be put in place. I think, I believe it was Kathy's point, this inventory, you sort of have to decide what should be there if we're going to do anything other than simply some kind of access point with a little parking, which may be all we want to do at the beginning. But anything beyond that, you're going to have some idea of not only what is, but then from a trail point of view, what should be from a, I suppose, ecological or environmental or topography point of view and so on. Does that make any sense?
Anyone got any feedback on that? Go ahead, Sue.
You're muted, Sue.
Sue,
Hey,
you're
Sue?
muted.
She's actually not muted, but you can't hear you. No.
I'll try. Can you hear me using his for a moment?
Yes.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say, I hope that we continue to keep things separate because we're here on an everyday basis. We have many parents and disabled people and groups of people that come here. And I don't think they need to get, you know, hurried out of the way by a bicycle or anything else when people are here with baby strollers and so forth. If you want to come here and enjoy nature and go for a walk, and it's very quiet and pleasant. If you want to hike, then you should go to Rantract. And making maps, and I think that's a very nice idea for people to follow for both sides. But keeping it separate when we're here on a daily basis is very important. It's hard enough when people are running and walking fast or whatever. So that's my opinion.
That just made me realize, Chad, you guys earlier, is that what you were talking about, was bikes at Webster Pond as part of your concern? Or maybe they're not a concern, but could be an issue?
The other gentleman, Jimmy, I think he was confused on the two properties, but I know that you were only referring to Webster Pond. I'm tied to the Rand Tract. I knew you didn't mean down here. I didn't think you meant down here.
Okay, so another one that we got a lot of comments on that I know. Another one that we got a lot of comments on was identifying the rare plants and where they are, mapping. And yes, like for a trail system, it would be great to do a comprehensive plan, get a comprehensive study of the tract, the adjacent parcels, the topography, key features. But in the meantime, while we hope and plan for that, we still have people every day using the Rantract. And one of the things that they do every day, one of the things they do on an annual basis is harvest ramps. They pick rare plants. Invasives get a little bit more. Deer continue to browse and prevent us from having our future forest when we're long gone and feeding the existing forest in our ashes. So that is why I wonder what people's ideas are for stewardship opportunities.
Let's just take care of that.
Within the tract. Does anyone have any ideas about how to go about that? One time I found the ramps by accident, and then another time I went looking for them and couldn't find them. So I feel like, yes, comprehensive planning is a critical thing that we need to do for a variety of reasons, to make intelligent decisions. In the meantime, we know we have a good trail system that's working for the level of use we have right now. At the same time, there are things we could be doing now. So we will revisit again. Time is fleeting now. We should like to have a further discussion about trails. And I would also like to speak a little bit right now about thoughts on stewardship and how we would get started on that.
Steve, this is Catherine. I'm just wondering if a student project could be, I mean, I don't know, you'd have to find the right student and all that, but maybe leak restoration and education. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how you would do that, but you know, maybe this, you know, an ESF student could set up some little plots right along the main trail so people could kind of see what was happening and, you know, explain they have a 10-year life cycle. You can't just rip them out like, you know, annual vegetables. I don't know, maybe this is a little, I mean, it might take a little bit to make that happen, but it's just a thought. I mean, I can try to think about how that might happen, you know, based on maybe a student project from ESF.
Just like Chad was talking about, I always get a little uncomfortable with the idea of policing, simply because you guys are volunteers and that's a city park. I mean, it's really just people. It's good that people are there. The thing that makes things safe are the eyes of other people. And you guys are good stewards. I just think of when it comes to enforcement, like if things went awry, what to do. But my point is, you guys are kind of there to make sure there's some sanity going on there. We don't have that for plants. People go harvest. There are other spring ephemerals there. If people pick plants, you know, there's nothing to indicate, okay, these are to tell you what you're looking at and why it's important. So even before, yeah, restoration is part, but just having an idea of where they are, a better idea is what I was wondering about.
So Steve,
Yeah.
Christina asked if there is a policy on foraging in the city with the increased interest.
No, but we are being asked to develop one. And of course, that's outside some people at SU proposed that. They want to propose a foraging policy for us to adopt.
And Kathy is mentioning just suggestions for the trailhead map. Things that are allowed, things are not allowed, and an explanation with reasons for things that are not allowed based on ecology, etc.
To my knowledge, there are no regulations for the Rantract. Does anyone know about any? I mean, I know I work for the park system, but I've never seen a rule about anything that happens there. Does anyone know of any city rules? So anything suggested, like the suggestions that Chad made, that came from the survey that Chad did, those were proposals. Is that what you're referring to, Kathy? Those things that we should prohibit?
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, basically, there needs to be some policies about what people can't do, but if you can use your signage to educate people, I think Catherine's idea of doing the plots would be good with signage to explain why. It's basic environmental education. We don't have any environmental education in the city of Syracuse. Do we? I mean, I know there's one school down in the valley that does a little bit of environmental education, but there's very little environmental education. So anything you can do with signage that would educate people about what they're seeing. But I think it's a free-for-all over there. That's why the bike group is advertising the Rantract as a good biking location when we haven't decided what it should be. You know, it's a free-for-all. And that's gonna damage the site over time. I agree with you. If you leave it like that, and then just the damaging activities will eventually destroy the site, you know, most of the site. So you do need to manage it, but you have to have a basis to manage it from. Right now, we don't have a basis to manage it from. We don't have a basis to make a decision. Except little ones. I mean, you can make little ones, but.
Thanks, Kathy. Paul, did you have your hand up?
No, I was just wondering when we're talking about regulations and the rest of it, would that require some sort of city legislation, a common council ordinance or something? Or are those kind of regs within the purview of the Parks Department, since it's a city park? Could the Parks Department say, for example, on this entry sign with a map and so on, no picking of ramps, or some such suggestion? How official does it have to get?
I'm not sure. I know that people, there's a group of people promoting more foraging in our public parks of edible foods. And so if that was a thing that increased in activity, the people that propose a foraging policy did so with that in mind. But I don't know if we can unilaterally say don't pick ramps. We probably can, but no rules are only as good as their enforcement. But then also people can be influenced by education and awareness. So in lieu of that, that's another alternative. I mean, just if people knew that if I do this, I'm going to have a negative impact on this, there are a lot of people will change their behavior. Not everybody will, but it will work. Just like having people going out on the trails and saying, hey, don't do this or don't do that. Some people will ignore you, but even if you have half listened, then that's effective. But I digress.
Can I just bring up a one point? If you knew how much of the resource there was, you could explain to people the rarity of it. And that was another reason to have the inventory and analysis, because then you can tell people, this is a very limited thing and it's very limited in the city, and that's why we need it.
Noted. Okay, so the last thing that I hoped to touch on this time before we rounded things out was first a clarification about the trail from Webster to Rantract. I've been a little unclear on that. There is a trail from Webster to Rantract, but is that the one that goes like toward the cemetery before you enter? Or is there one that goes due west from Webster to the Rantract?
Do you know down at the south end of the pond where we put that gate in?
Uh-huh.
That's the Rantract entrance right there.
Right, but that doesn't get you up into the woods.
It does
Yeah.
eventually.
Yes, it does.
That's what winds through that people jog on.
Yep.
Yes.
Got it. I mean, that's where that run was. Yeah, I got you. So I thought you meant due west from like where you enter and then cross through that like elevated wetland into the woods up by Hopper Road. No, you weren't talking about that.
So the entry that Chad is talking about takes you down behind the church and down behind a portion of the cemetery and crosses over what appears to be a spring-fed creek into the Rantract proper. But it takes you into the most rugged part of the trail. It's where you enter the trail, you're actually walking along a steep hillside next to a run from a spring. So it's not a tremendously ideal entry into the Rantract, particularly if you're talking about any kind of handicap access.
I can get up there fine with my wheelchair.
For some reason, I thought you had said earlier about continuing to develop that, but that is now well established. Is that the case?
Correct. We did that last year with the permission from the city.
So the only reason I'm bringing it up is as an opportunity for additional stewardship and whether further work needs to be done. Okay, so it's 8 p.m. and I know this was disjointed and that's on me, but all of this is still, we got to keep talking about this because we got some important things going on and some good things we can do. I don't know when we're going to meet next, but it's very important to me, and I think to all of you that we continue to have discussions with actions in mind. And I'm going to come back to you to ask which things I want to keep working on. Something I want us to work on some things that lead to some doing. And I don't know if those things are the things I brought up that were based on the comments, something to do with trail development, something to do with stewardship. I'm going to come back to you all to ask to weigh in on that, because I do think that we are going to want to be prepared for the, our mild changes in use are one thing, and we haven't noticed anything dramatic happen there, but dramatic spikes in use and types of use, or dramatic environmental change from a big storm or some kind of event, I don't feel like the Rantract is prepared for that. And we can help make it prepared for that, to protect it in its current condition. That's why I want to do this, and that's why I want to continue to engage you and to have a more robust and productive discussion next time. That next time is to be determined. I was gone for a week, and summer is a bad time to leave a job like this when everything's growing and it's very stormy. So it was a busy day. I wasn't able to think about when we would follow up. And of course, it would be nice to follow up in person. So we will be in touch about what the next steps will be. And I also encourage you to give some good, honest feedback about how we can move on the suggestions that people have made, both the ones that we've gotten from Chad's survey and from our last meeting. Anyone have any closing comments or things they want to say before we depart?
Really quick, if you haven't dropped your email in the chat, please do so. If we don't already have it, much appreciated.
Thanks very much. Nice to see you.
Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Have a good night.
Hey, Ann.
Hi, Chad.
Could you send me?
What's that, Chad?
Could you send me Kathy's email? I think she was asking for the survey, and I can send that to her.
Sure,
Or you
absolutely.
can, if you wish, you can. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely, Chad. Bill, I apologize. I had spelled your email wrong. Forgot the O in .com.
Bill, thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
You too.